Welcome back, tribe. Let's get into it. Got one here. Being a white man in South Korea.
What is it like being a white man in Korea? Do you think there's any advantages as a white man in Korea?
I have also been not approached, but random girl said hi just because, she wanted, I guess, to get my attention.
It's especially strange in situations where my Korean is better than their English, but they keep trying to speak English to me. That's really annoying, to be honest.
Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jin. Today I asked people about how is it like being a white man in Korea. Now let's check it out. What do you do in Korea?
Currently studying Korean at the Yonsei KLI.
Current exchange student at Kyunghee University.
I mostly work in the translation industry. I work on translations and editing and comparing translations and things like that.
I work at a university.
How has been your experience in Korea so far?
It's been very positive. I have not experienced any negative disposition towards me or me as a white person or as a foreigner so far.
It's honestly the best thing I've ever done out of all the things I've done in my life. And I'm not just saying this for the camera, but I'm most proud of my time here, working at the university, working with young people. When I first came here, I thought I might live here for a year, maybe two, but that was 15 years ago. So
that's a very broad question. Generally, my experience has been very positive. I quite enjoy living in Korea. Of course, there have been negative things, but the positive things outweigh the negative things by a lot. To give you some examples, I'm from a very small town in the countryside. Nothing is convenient from where I'm from, but in Korea, I can get anything very close to my home very quickly. It's very convenient to live in Seoul.
I've been loving it so far. The Korean culture is something else. It's totally not compared to Europe. Quite insane how generous and kind people are. And then they're really, really open and nice to you.
Like people are open to foreigners?
No, they're... Some people have very difficulties with speaking English, and you see that the people, like especially the older people, like they kind of tend to do not want to talk to us because they don't speak our language. First, we thought that they were really racist because they're like in restaurants, like no, don't come here, and we were like, it's just because we're white or something like that. But then we asked some Korean people, and they told us that's just because they don't speak English, so they find it a little bit scared to talk to us. What I fully understand now.
Today's topic is, how is it like being a white man in Korea? I can see a lot of videos about black people living in Korea, but I couldn't see any videos about white men, so I wanted to cover this topic. So, what is it like being a white man in Korea?
Okay, so interesting question. I think it's very much changed over time. So when I came to Korea 16 years ago, a white person was very rare, or any foreigners at all, especially outside of Seoul. You always felt like people were watching you or treating you differently. It's very different now. Nowadays, I usually don't even think about the fact that I'm different. I feel totally normal most of the time, but not always. And that's especially true in Seoul. When I travel outside of Seoul, I get questions, I get looks. But even in the countryside, it's different than it was 16 years ago.
Well, I can't speak for all Caucasians. I can only speak from my own personal experience. But I do feel like there might be a higher level of tolerance for certain nationalities, for example, Canadian or American versus other nationalities. I do feel like there are different expectations and standards for foreigners in general. But perhaps there is a higher level of tolerance for certain nationalities.
Could you tell me a little bit more specifically?
Well, I don't have any examples to cite. It's just a feeling that I feel more welcome. It's just how you feel in public, around people, on the subway or on the bus. I feel like Koreans feel comfortable around me. Again, I don't want to speak for the Korean nation.
He's basically just trying to be as politically correct as possible, but what he's really saying is white men don't typically have any problems, especially from certain cultures that are probably seen higher, say like Sweden or something, Canadian versus a loud American or German or whatever it is, right? They have their ideals of each individual culture within, white men as a whole umbrella. But yeah, you will get treated differently being black, being Hispanic, being other kinds of Asians they might look down on, some of the southeastern ones that are a little darker skin. It's a thing, man. It's a thing where you go around the world. It is what it is. That's the reality of traveling while being different. And some cultures have amassed a very positive stereotype, and some have amassed a very negative stereotype. And you have to be very mindful when you go traveling overseas about this, because it will affect your experience. And it tends to only be this way with the older generation, of course. So don't think the entire country is this way. All the old heads will look at you different, will have stereotypes. But typically, if you go to where the young people hang out, you know, say a bar, say the cafe shops, clubs, etc., it doesn't matter. If anything, it's always a positive when a foreigner's around. It's always attractive. It's only the older generation that's very much so stuck in their ways, and they will treat you a certain way or just avoid you whatsoever. But yeah, man, traveling, and I've met plenty of foreigners that are in Romania right now, some black, one Asian dude, one Indian dude, one, you know, whatever. I've talked to multiple nationalities from all over the place, from like the UK to America to Canadian. It doesn't matter. They're all having incredible experiences here, have absolutely no problems just because of the color of the skin or where they're from. People are generally very welcoming and have similar stories. Like, yeah, the real old people of this society may look at you weird in a certain way, but as far as like people our age or younger, absolutely no problem whatsoever. It's just, dude, this is the social media age. It's just people are exposed to so many different things, so many cultures around the world. You could access it from your phone. And for younger people, it's just exciting to meet somebody that's, quote, foreign and not from where they're living. And they're always inquisitive and like, oh my God, you're from here? Like, what's it like back home? You know, what do you think of the country? How is it, blah, 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 you know? And it's an exciting, different conversation to have. So don't be afraid to go traveling, no matter what color your skin is. You will have a great experience. And it typically only gets ruined if you're rude, if you're loud, if you don't respect the people's cultures and their norms and their traditions. That's when it goes sideways for you, no matter where you're from.
But Koreans might have some reservations or feel perhaps a little bit nervous around nationalities they're less familiar with.
I've also seen the videos about black people having bad experiences because they're black, or because some Korean people have not seen or are not acquainted with black people, so it's something new to them. I have not seen that about white people, I guess, because they have been more exposed to Western media and like European media. So it's more common for Koreans to know more about white people than black people, I guess. The only bad experience that I've had was 3 years ago when I was on a trip. I went to a club in Daegu where I've been blamed for a small accident that has happened there, even though I did not cause it. And it was just because I was like the foreigner there.
You see a lot of people watch you, and you kind of imagine like, are they thinking of something good or something bad? You see some people are a little bit afraid, I guess, because our height, because I'm here with my friends and we're all just really big.
Hey everyone, if you have a minute, please head over to legionofmen.store and grab yourself some cool merch as well. We have a bunch of limited edition designs, brand new stuff on the way, and all the proceeds go to supporting the channel. We don't want to be sponsored by corporations where we have to submit videos for review, have our speech impeded, or push any products that we don't use. So thank you so much to everybody that goes into the shop. Again, it's legionofmen.store. I'll put it up here for you guys. First time customers get a 10% off, and we have a bunch of great designs by artists from the community that watch the channel and support. They get proceeds as well, a percentage of everything that gets sold. So community funded through and through. And it's no synthetic fibers on any on our products. We're using cotton only, of course. I got your back from all those chemicals from synthetic fibers. Again, appreciate you guys. Let's continue.
And sometimes I can see some comments of people who have like darker skin. They notice that people treat them differently between white people and people who have some like darker skin. Do you think there's any advantages as a white man in Korea?
I have some friends from Africa. I've heard stories, and I'm not surprised when I hear stories of people might feel a little hesitant to take a seat next to a foreigner. But honestly, I have not experienced any kind of... I mean, there are good and bad people all over the world, so I mean, anyone can have a negative experience, but I've been very fortunate, and...
It's a really difficult question to parse. I think that generally speaking, white foreigners probably receive better treatment. than foreigners from Southeast Asia or Africa in Korea. At least white foreigners who can speak English. But I also feel like that is also something that's been disappearing over time. And I think in Korea there's a very big generation gap. Koreans who are maybe over 40 compared to Koreans who are maybe under 30. There's a very different relationship or opinion or something like that to the world outside of Korea. So younger people tend to accept everything as it is, and older people tend to prefer Korean ways and be skeptical or suspicious of non-Korean ways in a lot of cases.
Yeah, we had some restaurants where we went with, especially with young people who work there and who own the restaurants as well, who were like, "You're so nice, come next time, and you get extra service." And yeah, you see the girls laughing all the time, so that's quite fun and it's quite good for your self-confidence, I guess.
Okay. Then, have you ever experienced any racism in Korea?
Not directly. No, I haven't. And
sometimes I feel like I get treated differently for being a foreigner. A good example is I've been to the Dong office where I live. I feel like one of the people who works there always treats me differently and it annoys me. Another is that because I'm a foreigner, when I go places, often people try to speak English to me. It's fine, I understand. But the annoying thing that happens to me is when I go somewhere and I order something in Korean or I say something in Korean. And my Korean is pretty good. It's not perfect. But the person tries to speak to me in English. And it's especially strange in situations where my Korean is better than their English, but they keep trying to speak English to me. That's really annoying, to be honest.
the truth is, and this isn't just Korea, this can be found in America or Europe.
By the way, on that thing about the annoying that he's saying, you shouldn't be annoyed. It's just that locals rarely get to practice their English with a foreigner. They want them to feel welcomed. So the reason, even though his Korean may be better, and you may experience this going overseas yourself, that they will automatically speak in English to you simply because you look like whatever, an American, you look from an English-speaking country, or they hear you speak English, or it's just the default language that most people tend to speak to you when you look like a foreigner. That's just their opportunity, their excitement to speak English with you. No matter if you know their language or not. If you know their language, it's even cooler. And then they'll still try to speak English because it's rare for a foreigner to be there. There's no like racist undertone. There's no looking down on you. There's no negativity behind it at all. You have to understand, as excited as you are to be there in this foreign land and experience foreign culture, they're just as excited to rub a little bit off of you in the same manner. So if this happens to you when you're traveling overseas, do not take it personal whatsoever. Don't be annoyed by it. They're as fascinated as you are.
Ignorance is everywhere. How people treat others is a case-by-case situation. So yes, of course, if I hear a story where someone was mistreated, apparently not justified, then that's always going to be disheartening and disappointing, not just in Korea, but around the world. We all have to be tolerant, regardless of how we look on the outside.
So do you think Koreans have stereotype about white guys, or is there anything you have been told a lot just because you're white?
Yeah, especially in class, when we have group projects, they kind of think that we are not gonna work as hard. Like we'll be a little bit laid back and lazy and we only party all day. Yeah, I guess it's kind of true because we do. So Asian people in overall just work harder, I guess. But we do it in a different way and we all finish the job at a good time, so...
I'll give you two stereotypes. One is a stereotype that my wife had before she married me. My wife is Korean. And she had the idea that, oh, white men make very good husbands, and then she married me and she found out that it's not much of a difference. The other kind of funny stereotype is, these days it's not a big thing, but in the past, a lot of Korean people would assume that foreigners or white foreigners could not eat spicy food. So I had a friend who went to a restaurant one time and he ordered the spicy dish on the menu and they told him it was really spicy and he said that's okay. And they gave him a dish which was not spicy at all. So they deliberately removed the spicy ingredients. So he gave it back to them and complained and said he liked spicy food. And then the cook was angry, so they made it as spicy as they possibly could and gave it back to him.
I will say, generally, maybe some Koreans, their impression of Americans might come from Hollywood movies or television series that are popular. So maybe foreigners might seem michasa, crazy.
The last question is about experience with girls.
The girls.
Have you had any experience that girls come up to you and ask your number or give you a compliment?
They're not as direct as we are, because we Dutch people are very direct. So we immediately ask stuff. I see it from my friends. They immediately go to a girl and ask like, what's your number? Let's go home. And the Korean girls are like, whoa, that's too fast. But you see girls like giggling and then they shout at you, ah, so handsome, so handsome. And also we know it in Korean now, yepayo. So we heard that now a lot of times and it's quite funny to hear.
I can see a lot of comments that it's easier to date Korean girls if you're a white man. And do you think it's true?
I guess we desire what we do not know. I have been also told by one guy that Korean girls are interested in white guys because they're not that common here. I have also been not approached, but random girl said hi just because, she wanted, I guess, to get my attention. The grass is always greener on the other side. If you were a girl that were surrounded by Koreans and you see a foreigner, then you're more interested, I guess, maybe to approach and get to know somebody else because it's more interesting, because you're not acquainted with that. I don't know. If you have been watching lots of Western media, then you also might have like a romanticized vision of a white guy or Westerner person. I guess the same goes the other way. If you watch a lot of K-dramas, then you have a romanticized vision of a Korean boyfriend or Korean girlfriend in your head. So I think it goes both ways.
Korean women and their taste for men, I don't know. I think there might be some curiosity. Maybe they might want to spend.
Of course, man. We've talked about it on the channel at length. It's way easier for you to be a foreigner and pull girls for the exoticism bonus points that you get. You're different. You stand out. That's intriguing. People are interested. You have a unique perspective on life and upbringing. That makes you attractive by default. That's why when men go overseas, they get a passport and they're blown away at the reception from women wherever they go traveling. And they always report back that they had the time of their life, that they can't wait to go back, that they're thinking of living there now, that people are so nice, that girls are so much easier to get along with, so much more feminine, so much more this and that. That's why. This is one of the reasons. So if you're having trouble dating where you're currently at, if you're a local dude, or maybe you just don't like the women around you, maybe, again, like we say, the values and the traditions aren't there and what you're looking for. If you go to another country, man, it does become easier for what I've mentioned earlier. Hence why so many men are starting to travel now. Hence why so many videos of Western women complaining about men traveling. And that whole narrative that you have to go to a poor country doesn't exist, because look, Korea is a highly developed nation, one of the most developed in the world. Same advantages. It absolutely does not matter. Go to Japan, same thing will happen. Go to any other nation, same thing will happen. If you look different, you will be successful. So that was Jin's street interview, being a white guy in South Korea.